evening? Do we have our materials, our Bibles, our writing pads, and our notebooks with us? If you don't, please get your materials together before we continue. Okay, I guess we're fine now. So I want us to have a short game before we continue. Don't please get your materials together before we continue. Sorry, please. Okay. I want us to play a short game before we continue. So, how many of us know the Old Testament books? Many of us know the Old Testament books. If your video is not on, you can just... Okay, you know it's a bit. Okay, so I have Lisa. Who else wants to try? I think I can just call everybody. And if you're not sure, you can just let me know. Auntie Esther. Auntie Esther?
Yes, Auntie Tosin.
So if you look at the books on the screen, they are not correct. So you can mute your mic and run this with the children on the screen. So when we're done doing on the children online. So let me start with the children online. On my screen, who is the first person on my screen? The first person on my screen is actually Nathan. So we have Genesis, Exodus. What's the next book, Nathan?
Leviticus.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. Then we have Numbers, Deuteronomy. Lisa, let's go.
1 Samuel.
No, after Deuteronomy, what book is it?
Ruth.
No. Do you want someone else to try?
Yes, please.
All right. Nathan, you've answered. Who wants to try? Otanya, let me give this to you. Otanya, after Deuteronomy, what next?
Joshua.
Okay, Joshua, continue.
Judges, Ruth, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel.
Okay, then stop there. Stop there. Ori, continue from 1 Samuel.
2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you, Ori. Ajay, can you continue from Nehemiah? Ajay, continue from Nehemiah. Should I let someone else?
Me.
Okay, okay,
Esther.
Ajay. Okay.
Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastic, Song of Songs,
It's okay.
Lamentations.
Wait. Ajay, thank you. Ajay stopped at Songs of Solomon. Okay. Chloe, do you want to try?
No, thank you. No, they can't hear you.
Lisa, do you want to try? From Ecclesiastes. Okay, let's allow someone else. Who else wants? Oh, I see someone raising up. Is that Yoma? Yoma, continue from Ecclesiastes. Yoma.
Isaiah.
No, continue from Ecclesiastes.
Ecclesiastes.
No.
Ecclesiastes. Isaiah.
No. Ajay had already said the next book after Ecclesiastes, which is Song of Songs or Songs of Solomon. After Songs of Solomon, which one is next? Okay, let me give someone else. Sheifumi, do you want to try? Okay, go ahead, Sheifumi.
Ecclesiastes, Songs of Solomon.
Okay.
Isaiah,
Isaiah, next.
Habubak.
No. Thank you very much, Shay. You've tried. Let me pass to someone else. Let me pass to someone else. Okay, Lisa. After Isaiah, we have
Jeremiah,
then
Lamentations,
yes. Next.
then Ezekiel,
Okay.
then Daniel,
Okay.
then Hosea,
Okay.
and then Joel and Amos, and
Amos.
Obadiah and Jonah.
Okay, you can wait
and
now.
Micah.
Stop. You can stop, Lisa. Thank you. You've gotten to Jonah. Who has not spoken? Let me look for someone who has not spoken. Okay. All right. Who else wants to continue? I know Nathan was the first to speak. Okay, Nathan, you can continue from Jonah. Okay, let me move to Serafina. Let me move to Serafina. Serafina, Jonah, next after Jonah. Serafina's hand is up. No, the book after Jonah is missing. It's not on the screen. So we have Jonah. Do you want to pass to someone else? Okay, Nathan, after Jonah.
Micah,
Okay.
Nahum, Habakkuk,
Nahum. Okay.
Nahum.
After Habakkuk, it's okay. It's okay.
Zephaniah.
It's okay, Nathan. Thank you. It's okay, Nathan. So let's, Otsanya, just wrap it up for us. After Habakkuk, Otsanya, just wrap it up for us. Otsanya, can you wrap it up for us?
Yeah. Haggai. Oh wait, no. Zephaniah, Haggai, Habakkuk. Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi.
Thank you very much. So what we just did now, we went. Siesta, I hope you're done. So we're going to be looking at the book of Judges, but we're just picking a few verses from the book of Judges. So I would like us to remain muted because I'm going to be the one talking for now. So everybody can stay muted for now until I ask a question. Joanne, James, your mic is not connected. If you can, please, that would help. So what is the goal or purpose of God's plan? God's goal is to show his glory. And then you wonder, what's that? In the lives of people, God works out his plan to show his glory. We'll get to understand more of that today. What does it mean when we say to show his glory? To show his glory is to reveal his greatness and power. God is the creator of all things, like we've seen in Genesis. He is the one true God and has the authority to do whatever he pleases. In our Bible lesson today, we're going to see how God uses people to show his glory. So we're going to be looking at somebody today. Who is this person? Who can you see on your screen? I see Emmanuel, David, and Joseph are here. Who can you see? You can unmute and say it out loud.
Deborah the judge.
Deborah the judge. Thank you, Deborah the judge. Deborah the judge. Thank you very much. So I'm going to be sharing a story, and while I talk, please remain muted. Nobody should unmute their mics so we can hear each other. All right. During the time of Joshua, the Israelites conquered much of the land that God had promised to them. But there were still areas controlled by the Canaanites. This sounds like so much history, right? We'll get to understand better. God raised up judges to lead his people and help them live by his laws. Who are judges? Have you ever heard the word judge before? Who is a judge? Who is a judge? I see Lisa is very anxious.
A judge is someone that judges people.
Okay, judges people. Okay, I saw Serafina was unmuting.
A judge is someone.
Okay, Lisa, please go ahead.
A judge is someone who settles arguments and makes sure that there is peace in communities.
Ah, thank you so much. Settles disputes or arguments. Thank you, Serafina and Lisa, for that beautiful contribution. Yes, and make sure there is peace in the community. When the Lord raised up a judge and people obeyed God, they lived in peace. And if they went into battle, they were victorious. So in those days, there were always battles. People had to fight. So there were judges at that time. And the person we're talking about today was also a judge. She was a female judge. But when the judge died and the people abandoned God and started worshiping other gods, when they did so, their enemies defeated them and they lived in great distress, as it's written in the book of Judges. So, when the Lord raised up a judge, and okay, I'm repeating the same slide. So we're going to be reading our passage today. We're going to be reading Judges chapter 2 from verse 10 to 16, the very first set of the books. So I'm going to be picking a few people to read, people that didn't speak when we're speaking earlier. So Yoma will read verse 10 to 12, and then we will have two people in church. One person will read verse 13 and 14, and someone will read 15 and 16. Auntie Esther, please get ready. Yoma, can you start with verse 10 to 12? Thank you.
That whole generation also died, and the next generation forgot the Lord and what he had done for Israel. And the people of Israel sinned against God and began to serve the Baals. They stopped worshiping the Lord, the God of their ancestors, the God who had brought them out of Egypt, and they began to worship other gods, the gods of the people around them. They bowed down to them and made the Lord angry.
Thank you very much, Yoma. Auntie Esther, can someone in church read 13 and 14 and someone else 15 and 16? Thank you.
Read 15 and 16, okay. All right, Abigail will read for us from verses 13 and 14. Read loud.
They stopped worshiping the Lord and served the Baals and the Astartes. And so the Lord became furious with the Israel and let raiders attack and rob them. He let the enemies all around overpower them, and the Israelites could no longer protect themselves.
Verse 15 and 16.
Every time they would go into battle, the Lord was against them, just as he had said he would be. They were in great distress. Then the Lord gave the Israelites leaders who saved them from their riders.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, for those who read. So we're going to be having lots of people reading. Ori, you read verse 17 and 18 for us, and then we would have Emmanuel, verse 19 and 20. Auntie Esther, please pick someone in church to read 21 to 23. Thank you. Ori, verse 17 and 18. Emmanuel, verse 19 and 20.
But the Israelites paid no attention to their leaders. Israel was unfaithful to the Lord and worshipped other gods. Their fathers had obeyed the Lord's commands, but this new generation soon stopped doing so. Whenever the Lord gave Israel a leader, the Lord would help that leader and would save the people from their enemies as long as the leader lived. The Lord will have mercy on them because they groaned under their suffering and oppression.
Thank you, Ori. Emmanuel.
But when the leader died, the people would return to the old ways and behave worse than the previous generation. They would serve and worship other gods and stubbornly continue their own evil ways. Then the Lord will become furious with Israel and say, "This nation has broken the covenants that I commanded their ancestors to keep, because they have not obeyed me."
Thank you, Emmanuel. Auntie Esther.
I start.
Yes.
I will no longer drive out any of the nations that were still in the land where Joshua died. So the Lord, I will use them to find out whether or not these Israelites will follow my ways as their ancestors did. So the Lord allowed these nations to remain in the land. He did not give Joshua victory over them, nor did he drive them out soon after Joshua's death.
Thank you very much for reading. So after the death of, So after the death of a judge called Ehud, God's people turned to worshiping false gods again. They began to sin. As a result, God let them be conquered by King Jabin of Hazor, a Canaanite king. That was really very sad. We'll get to understand this gradually. The commander of King Jabin's army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth-Goyim. Sisera, who had 900 iron chariots, ruthlessly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. Then they cried out to God for help. They were suffering. They had sinned. And this time around, they were conquered. And they began to cry out to God for help. Please remain muted. Thank you. So something happened. Deborah, the wife of Lapidoth, was a prophetess who was judging Israel at that time. Under this palm of Deborah, between Ramah and Bethel, and the Israelites would go to her for advice and to settle their disputes by God's law. Just like Lisa and Serafina had told us, judges settle disputes. So this woman was one of those judges. She settled disputes in the community. So one day, Deborah sent for Barak. I'm sure she was not happy. Barak was the son of Abinoam, who lived in Kadesh in the region of Naphtali. So you can see a map here for some of us that understand how maps are drawn. You can see the identification of Kadesh in the region of Naphtali. Barak traveled south to meet her. So by that time, there were no phones. Deborah had to send somebody, go call Barak, we need help. So Barak traveled and came to meet her. I'm sure you'll be wondering, in this generation, she could have just picked up a phone and make a phone call and say, please, can you help us with this and that? And then he will come and help. So Deborah told him, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, commands you to do. Gather 10,000 warriors from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun at Mount Tabor. I will call out Sisera, commander of Jabin's army, along with his chariots and warriors, to Kishon River. There I will give you victory over him. So Deborah was confident in the Lord. She knew the Lord because she was a God-fearing woman, and she had a word from the Lord. This was an encouraging word. Barak replied, I will go, but only if you go with me. Very well, Deborah replied. She was not afraid, just like who had to face a battle and had to trust God. Last year, we were talking about David when he had to face Goliath. So this time around, Deborah was a God-fearing woman. She was not afraid. She said she would go with them. But you will receive no honor in this venture, for the Lord's victory over Sisera will be at the hands of a woman. So Deborah went with him. Barak called together the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali, who lived east of Lake Galilee. And 10,000 warriors went with him, and Deborah to Mount Tabor. This sounds like so much history, but God is about to help them. And this is happening because of the faith of somebody called Deborah. At that time, it was not a common thing for women to fight battle. Even in our generation, there are very few women that are in the army or even in the police. There are very few judges who are females. But Deborah trusted in God, and she knew that God was going to help them. So my encouragement to us today as we wrap up the first half of the story of Deborah is that no matter how dark the world may seem because of people's sin, God can still show his glory in the most dark and difficult times. I'm sure sometimes we wonder, why are people committing sin? Some of our friends are telling lies. Some of them are even stealing. Some of them are fighting. What is God saying about this? God can still show his glory in these difficult times, even when we feel discouraged. God's people, Israel, had been given his promises. Through God's people, the Savior will be born. God's people continually sinned and abandoned God and became slaves to sin. When we sin against God, the devil has opportunity to do whatever he wants to do to us. And that's why it's good for us to trust God. One of the reasons why Deborah was not afraid was because she knew God and she trusted God. Nothing can stop God's plan. And through the wickedness and rebellion of his people, he was able to reveal his glory. Even with the fact that people still telling lies, people acting all naughty, people sinning, God can still get the glory through it all. God can still help us no matter how difficult the situation is. So don't be discouraged. In this story, who is the judge? Deborah. Deborah was the judge. And what do we learn about her? Now I'm going into brief stories now. What is one thing we'll say we picked from this story? It sounded like so much history. It sounded like so many things were going on. But if I were you, even after this class, I'll go back and read the book of Judges. I'll read chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4. You can decide to pick it gradually and add to what you read for your devotion. So, let me see someone. Oh, I see Abraham has joined us now. So, Abraham, who was Deborah? Or let me call someone else. Deborah, Abraham, we can't hear you because you're muted.
Deborah is a prophetess woman.
Okay, she's a prophetess and a judge. Okay, thank you very much. Emmanuel, I see you, but is David and Joseph, are they there with you? Let's hear from them too. David, what did you learn about Deborah? Okay. All right. While we wait for David, I want to call someone who has not spoken. What is one thing we learned about Deborah? Okay, Darasimi, I muted you while we
Auntie is here.
All right, David, please go ahead.
That we should be confident.
Confident, okay. Joanne James. I see someone, Joanne James. Okay, I see Nathan and Lisa raising up their hands. Let me go with them. And then next, Serafina. Nathan, Lisa, then Serafina. What is one thing you learned from Deborah?
I did not want to say what I learned. I wanted to ask, are we doing the memory verse?
Ooh, yes, we are. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you very much.
I learned
share the memory verse. Okay, you learned?
I learned that we should be brave.
Okay, we should be brave. Thank you very much. Lisa, then Serafina after Lisa.
I learned that we should have faith in God and believe that He can help us through difficult, dark times.
Thank you very much. We should have faith in God and believe that He can help us through difficult, dark times. Serafina.
I learned about Jesus. I learned about Deborah, going with confidence. I learned that Deborah was going with confidence and she was not afraid of anything because she believed in God. She believed in God and never prayed to other gods.
Thank you very much, Serafina. Thank you, everybody that has shared.